What's going on, everybody? You're listening to the Point2Point NHL Recap Show, Season 2, Episode 11. I'm Pascal Pryor, joined by Mark Haverlack. Mark, we got a busier episode today, but before we get into all this, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right, man. Just going through some personal stuff, to be quite honest with you. It hasn't been the greatest time for me, but just trying to, get through it. I've been getting some hockey on to distract me. We're going to get into the Habs later. I've been pretty impressed with their play. So, still some things to look forward to for sure, man. How you been doing recently?
I've been doing good. World Juniors last night. It was an awesome game watching the finals. I caught a bit of it, caught most of OT, which was nice. We're going to talk about that. Honestly, let's get right into it, though. The World Juniors, it's officially come to an end. Team USA won the gold medal with a 4-3 win over Team Finland in overtime. And in the bronze medal game, Team Czechia beat Team Sweden 3-2 in a shootout. Mark, what were your thoughts on the gold medal game? I loved it, but what did you think about it?
Dude, it was a really good game, man. I think I was more shocked at first how strong Finland came out and kind of made US like didn't look too good right out of the gate, to be quite honest with you. And then I felt like kind of near the end of that second period there, I don't know if Finland kind of let off the gas or USA really got going. They kind of got that. I don't know if you saw that. It was a bit of a fluke second goal where it was like a shot and it was like almost going like over the net and it like hit the defenders like back and then it like changed directions and went in. I think that definitely gave the States a little bit of momentum. But even after Hagens tied it 1-1, like, dude, Finland came right back. Like, was it even a minute later they scored again?
It was pretty
Um,
quick.
I didn't really think it was like Augustine's best game. Like a couple of those shots, I was really surprised went in. I will say though, if we're kind of evaluating from start to finish, I definitely would give the States the edge in that game, even though Finland did start a lot better and had the 3-1 lead at points. But man, I've been talking about him all World Juniors that Petteri Rimponen goalie dude, like he's really good. Like I seriously believe he didn't get drafted because he's 5'11". I honestly think a team might take a flyer on him in a later round this year, like I would, because like with the smaller goalies, you just want to see them battle, right? And it's like, dude, like how many 10 bell saves did he make in overtime? Like four? Like
I
he
think it
stopped
was 4 or
Leonard on that
5.
breakaway and he had like three backdoor saves.
Yeah, it was like 4 or 5. Like it was to the point, dude, that like we were both watching the game. We weren't together, but it's like I think I was a bit ahead of you maybe when I was watching, but like, dude, I'm watching. I see an amazing save. I'm texting you. I'm like, holy shit, dude! Like, what a fucking save! And then I look back up from texting you, and he's making another like unreal save. Like
Yeah.
there was a Leonard one. There was the Zeev Buium one that he had there where he went like cross crease and he had that amazing save. Like there was, I think it was at least 4 saves where it was like, holy shit, like this game should be over. Team USA should have won it right there. And like for a little bit there, dude, I thought Finland might win it just based off the fact that like I thought they were going to get a big save there at some point, and Finland was going to get a odd man rush going back down was going to win it. Um, Talking about the overtime, man, like for me, I forgot it was 3v3 overtime like before it started, right? So
Yeah.
heading into overtime there, like at the end of the third period, I'm like, man, like Finland, like if they play good here in OT, like they might have a chance to win it. And then for me, I saw overtime start and I was like, oh fuck, dude, it's 3v3. And
Yeah.
when I sort of realized it was 3v3, at that point I thought Team USA was gonna come back and win it. Just because like in 3v3 overtime, a lot of the time it comes down to like who has the most firepower. And in 3v3, Team Finland has the most firepower there, right? So, or sorry, Team USA has the most firepower. So I really thought they were kind of gonna win it there going into overtime. But when you saw that the overtime was 3v3, like, did you sort of think USA had it?
Not really that. I just felt like they had it more because I felt like they had a lot of the momentum heading into overtime and they played better the last like 25 minutes of regulation. But I mean, like you saying that, yeah, I could totally see that. But I guess that just never really went to my head. It was more just like I thought they're playing a lot better, and I thought they were going to end up burying one like they just did. To be completely honest, dude, I'm really not a fan of the 3v3. I
Yeah,
will be
neither am
honest.
I.
I like that they changed the format since I hated when it was 2017 or whatever, and Canada US were in the gold medal game and it went to a shootout. I hated it, dude. I remember I was sitting here watching, and the shootout hadn't even started yet. And I had already felt like it's weird. I felt kind of depressed. I was like, I don't even want to win like this, really. And then they lost, and it felt even worse. And it's just like,
Yeah.
I just don't think such a big game should be decided by that. And to be completely honest with you, dude, I don't really like that the bronze medal game is decided by that either. I like it like it's in the NHL. It's like the season you'll do it, and then the playoffs come and it's continuous overtime. I'd be okay with the shootout in the round robin, and then once we get to the quarterfinals and beyond, just do continuous overtime, dude. Someone's gonna freaking score eventually, man. Like,
Yeah.
and even if it does take longer and longer, it's like, well, you're getting such a better game. You know what I mean? I'm kind of surprised it didn't end sooner. Like I remember when Gunther got the golden goal a couple years ago? Like, dude, that game almost lasted the full 20 minutes of overtime at 3-on-3, which is kind of crazy. But I don't know. I just feel like I would prefer to see the better team win when it's like just more of like a continuation of the game.
Yeah, like
You know what I mean?
I 100% agree with you, man. Like 3-on-3 isn't actual hockey, right? Like like if it was 5-on-5, man, I think Finland actually has a much better chance of winning that game. But just since it was 3-on-3, and when you look at Team USA and how many puck movers and playmakers and sort of star players they have, like for me, it was really hard to see Finland pulling off the win there in overtime just based off the Team USA roster. And to your point that you're surprised that like it didn't end sooner, I mean that Rempinen kid made four unreal stops where it's like it probably could have ended within the first 5 minutes there if Team USA could put the puck past him, but like he was just a brick wall. And then the other thing too is like what we're seeing nowadays with 3-on-3 overtime is that it's so much puck possession. So I'm pretty sure I texted you as soon as I realized that it was 3-on-3, like, oh, I can't wait for 20 minutes here of regrouping because that's all they do now in 3-on-3. If they don't get the chance they want in the offensive zone, you have their defensemen take it out back to their own blue line. They do a full regroup, get your line changes right. So it's like that's the other reason why I hated the 3-on-3 overtime here in the gold medal game was just because you get so much of that. Nothing happening. They're standing behind the net, regrouping. They're taken out of the offensive zone, regrouping. Like it's not actual hockey, which I absolutely hate that a gold medal game is decided by something like 3-on-3 or even the shootout, as you mentioned, for the bronze medal game, right? Like I think for any game after the round robin, have it be overtime, 5-on-5, like sudden death winner, no shootout.
Like, dude, it's
Maybe,
gonna end eventually. Like, I get they're
yeah,
probably worried about guys being tired and there's a back to back, but it's like, man, I don't know. Like, it's only a couple games. Like, it's not like we're at the beginning of round one of the Stanley Cup playoffs and it's like Tampa Columbus a couple years ago. And that obviously kind of destroyed Columbus a little bit. But it's like, that's a bit different, in my opinion, dude. Like, these guys are going to give it their all no matter what. Like, they understand the stakes and what they're playing for. I would just prefer to see 20-minute 5-on-5 continuation of the game kind of thing. It just makes it feel so much different when there is overtime in a shootout. But obviously, we'll get into the bronze medal game too here soon. But like, it was obviously really entertaining, right? Like the shootout is awesome. Like I don't get me
yeah,
wrong, but I wouldn't want to end it like that.
yeah. Just losing on that way, it's just gotta suck, man. Because it's like for me, it's not the game of hockey. At the end of the day, it's not the game of hockey. It's an extension of it, and to lose a really meaningful game on something that isn't actually the game of hockey is more an extension of hockey or like a skills game, skills competition almost. Like it fucking blows, man. Especially there where you're getting one chance. Like you may only make one World Juniors team and only have one opportunity of winning a medal or 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 winning the gold, and to lose on that fucking sucks. Honestly, for me, man, I didn't really catch much of the Czechia Sweden game. I saw that Salah kid scored two goals there, one in the shootout. So looks like he had a really good performance. But what did you sort of make of that bronze medal game?
I didn't get to watch a whole bunch of it either. I just kind of saw some of the recaps. He actually had two in the shootout, dude. He tied it.
Okay.
So him and I forget who it was on Sweden. The last two shots for each team, they both took them. That Swedish kid scored. Sally tied it, and then that Swedish kid shot again. He hit the post, and then Sally scored again. But Sally actually missed 3 times earlier in the shootout. And Sandin Pellikka, I think, shot 4 times. He scored 1. It was a fucking dangle, dude. I don't know if you saw it. Holy shit, it was unreal. Yeah, I mean, like, dude, I think we just really got to start taking Czechia a lot more seriously, as
Yeah,
like they're honestly getting to the point where I wouldn't put them up in this number 1 tier, but dude, I think they're coming. I think in the next 5 to 10 years or so, we might be talking about them as like a real legit contender to win this tournament every single year. Man, I saw they did not medal for 18 years. Czechia. This Eduard Saleh kid came in. They've medaled the last 3 years. They had a silver against Canada and 2 straight bronzes. So
yep.
honestly, dude, I got to give those guys a ton of kudos. But I don't know, man. Like, do you want to talk about Sweden a little bit? Like, it's kind of just the same thing. Like, they give you a ton of hope in the round robin. They're a great team. Don't get me wrong, but it seems like they just can't
Just can't
finish
get
the
over the hump.
job, man. What has it been? 12 years since they won a gold medal? I think it's been was 2012. To be quite
Yeah,
honest
I
with
think
you, they
it's been
went
a
through
while.
that streak of was it 48 or 49 round robin games in a row what they won, but they only had 1 gold medal in that span. I don't know what it is with them, man. I can't really say it's like they don't buckle down, because it's like it's a cycle of new players, right? Every couple of years. So it's just like I really don't know what it is with them, man. But I'm starting to feel a little bit bad because they're kind of in that top tier, and it's almost like they haven't performed like it recently. I was pretty shocked that Finland got by them, to be honest. I thought Sweden was going to play again for the gold, but yeah, I guess a little bit concerning for Sweden, because I thought they had a really good chance to win this tournament and at least take home a medal. I did not think one bit that they weren't going to medal.
Yeah, I thought they were going to medal. I think I had them as favorites to win the tournament at one point here during when we were recording, right? So it's like I thought they were going to do good. Of course, in classic Swedish fashion, they don't finish with a medal. But I'm with you, man. Like Czechia, like we got to start putting some more respect on them in the international hockey world. And I don't think it's just them, man. Like I think it's like Finland, even Finland. I don't think it's enough respect, man. Like this is a team that beat Team USA 4-0 in the round robin. They go to the finals. They give USA a run for their money and look like at parts of the game that they might be able to win that gold medal. Like even Team Finland, man, like I don't think they get enough respect. Like Slovakia, I don't think they get enough respect, dude. Like I think when you look at hockey over the past 5, 10 years or so, like before 10 years, it was really like you had Sweden, you had Russia, you had sort of Canada, you had
Yeah.
USA, and it was like what one of those four is gonna win the gold, and how are the like who's gonna out of those guys who's gonna win silver and bronze? Where now with hockey, it really feels like you have like Russia isn't playing, but like if Russia was playing, like you'd have them, you have Canada, you have USA, you have Sweden, you have Finland, you got Czechia, you got Slovakia. It really feels that like any one of those teams could win a tournament in international play, whether it's the World Juniors, whether it's U18s, U16s, whether it's the Olympics. Like it really feels like who out of those teams anybody can win, because it's not all about who is the best players. It really comes down to who's going to gel over a short tournament like that, right? And like
Yeah.
we see with Czechia, like they gelled really well. We see with Team Finland, like Team Finland, man, like you compare roster wise against Team USA, even like Team Canada, who really did not perform well at this World Juniors. Like on paper, you can make an argument that Team Canada looks better on paper, but at a short tournament like this, where Team Finland can gel and they really buy into their system, like it does wonders for them. And I think we're going to see this going forward, that the the hockey landscape internationally wise, it's going to be a lot closer where you're really going to have like one of 6 teams be able to win, where compared to 4 or 5 years ago, where it was really just the big dogs. Just before we sort of move on about that though, and talk about the awards winners from this tournament, the one thing I do want to say is I am seeing a massive narrative online right now that Team USA has taken over as the hockey nation to beat. I fucking hate this narrative, man. Yes, I am Canadian, so I am a little bit biased, but Team Canada, we've talked about it before. They did not bring a good roster. This roster had made no sense. And the other thing too is the World Juniors is a U20 tournament, and you have U20 players playing in the NHL where they're not loaned back to Team Canada to play. So this team, you could have had Connor Bedard, Zach Benson, and Macklin Celebrity on this Team Canada team. Like those players
And Fantilli, dude.
and Fantilli. Like if those players go back and play for Team Canada, and then Team Canada also makes a bit of different roster decisions and brings like the Zane Paraks and the Yakimchucks. Like I think Team Canada is still. I think it might have been a different outcome, right?
Yeah,
So
and
I
even with the States, dude, like really the only guy that they would be getting back would be Will Smith,
yeah
right? So it's like it's almost like a trade-off, right? With a couple other guys there. I mean, I think Americans are just trying to get us going a little bit. I mean,
they got me going. So
as a Canadian, I also hate it, but I also genuinely just disagree with it.
yeah
Okay, if USA had won the World Championship in the spring, and then if they went on and win four nations, I think that they have a very valid argument.
yeah.
But and honestly, if they win four nations, I can start seeing why they're saying it. To be honest with you, but it's like, dude, Czechia won the fucking world championship
Yep.
last spring, right? Like, I think it's a little bit premature. If they three-peat at home, I don't know, man. They probably got a very good point. You know what I mean? That there's a lot of Americans up and coming that look like they're going to be studs in the NHL, and their team's already looking great in accordance to like an international standpoint. So I think it's a little bit premature, but to be honest with you, I can't not say that they're not on their way there. Like they're heading in that direction.
I agree with you. I just think it's premature to say. Like, I want to see what happens with the Four Nations face-off. Olympics are coming up here in 2026, right? Like, I want to see what happens there. For me, it's just a whole thing that's saying like you're the top of the hockey world for the World Juniors, where it's like you have the best U20 players in the world not playing in that tournament because they're playing in the NHL where they're point per game players or just under point per game players. It's just hard for me to take that argument seriously. I just wanted to come out and say that. Let's talk about the awards winners though from the tournament. MVP was Ryan Leonard. Best goaltender of the tournament was from Team Finland, Terry Rempinen. Best defender, Axel Sandin Pellikka from Team Sweden, and best forward, of course, Ryan Leonard, who also won the MVP. And then you also have the media all-star team. Goaltender was Rempinen, defender Cole Hudson, and Axel Sandin Pellikka. And then the three forwards were Ryan Leonard, Gabe Perreault, and Jakub Stancil from Team Czechia. Mark, based off what I said there, like, is there anything you sort of want to change?
I mean, it's kind of hard to narrow it down to five guys when there's probably a couple more deserving, and it's kind of hard for me to say like this Stancil kid played awesome, man.
Yeah,
The only other guy that I think maybe got a snub a little bit is Dvorsky. That would probably be a guy that I would throw in there in the forwards, but it's also like I kind of agree with them taking Perreault, Stancil, and Leonard, right? I both of those D man, dude, either one of them could have been the MVP. Sorry, like defenseman MVP. I saw some
yeah.
guy on Twitter that had a vote. He put Cole Hudson and Tom Willander as his 2D. And I'm like, how are you picking Willander over Sandine Pellikka? I don't know if that had anything to do with like the actual votes for like a best defender as well. Um, Obviously, like Hudson, dude, I don't know if this is the first time an American defenseman has ever led the tournament in scoring, they said, or it's only like the third time ever like a defenseman has led the tournament in scoring, apparently. There was a lot of more low scoring games this year, like a kind of 11 points to lead the tournament. You usually see a lot more than that, I feel like. But I really have no issues with these picks. I guess the only other guy I think that could have been in there is Dvorsky.
I don't have too many issues with these picks. The one thing I would change is honestly, I'd give the best defender to Cole Hudson, and I'd give the MVP to Hudson as well. Like to lead the tournament in points as a defenseman is pretty impressive,
Yeah.
especially when you look at some of the forwards that are in this tournament, like Ryan Leonard, who did win the MVP. Like he's a very good forward. Like the Stancil kid, Gabe Perreault, Dvorsky, Hagens, Saleh, right? Like, there's a lot of good forwards in this tournament. The fact that Cole Hudson was above a point per game and he led the tournament points as a defenseman. Like, I really think he should have won MVP and he should have won the defender of the tournament. Like,
I don't really
that
necessarily disagree. I just think that what they may have taken into consideration was more or less like as much as Hudson was like one of their best players, like I would argue there's more like talented players on the team that he
yeah,
plays around. And Sandin Pellikka honestly kind of took the bull by the horns and almost ran it himself, like with that hat trick and stuff like that. So, and honestly, I would have had no issue giving it to Hudson. I just think that that's maybe what they took into consideration a bit.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. It's just Hudson for me just looked dominant at points, and it's
It's crazy that he went the second round again,
yeah,
away. Like, I mean, I was talking to you about this before the draft, and you were kind of like, not like disagreeing with me, but you were kind of like, I don't know, like his size and whatever. And it's just like, dude, I don't know, man. Like you were saying last night that he's almost kind of in the same tier as like Parak and Yakimchuk, like who are in that draft. And Hudson went like 43rd overall.
I think he is. Like if I'm being honest right now, looking in time, I think out of the defenseman draft of last year, like it's also hard because last year's draft was pretty fucking loaded on defensemen, right? So
Yeah.
like at the time, it's sort of you can see why he won the second round because there's a bit more of a question mark with him compared to like somebody like Zeev Buium, right? Where like Buium, maybe his ceiling isn't as high as a guy like Hudson, but his floor is a lot higher than Hudson's floor, right? Because like Hudson's floor going into the draft last year, it's like Hudson's floor is like maybe a 5'6" defenseman who can run your power play, right?
Yeah. And move the puck
Where
low.
his ceiling though is a lot higher than a guy like Buium. But like for me though, like I take Buium over Hudson still. Honestly, it's pretty close. I'd say it's like 51% Buium,
I think the
49%.
difference is too last year, like Booyam being kind of a year older or the year older birth year, he was able to play in NCAA.
Yeah,
Hudson playing the national development program. To be honest, his if you compared like Cole to Lane's stats comparison in their draft year, like Lane was a little bit better as well. So I don't really know if teams kind of thought that when they're taking into consideration. Man, I did not take this until a couple days ago. So I'm pretty sure Hudson was drafted 42nd overall by the Caps or 43rd. On that day, that was the Sabres pick. They traded that second round pick to Washington for Beck Malenstein. And Washington used that pick to pick Cole Hudson. Kind of crazy, man.
Buffalo. Yeah,
Like I mean, it's not like Buffalo sitting here and like it's not like they don't have a guy similar to Cole Hudson, but it's just like I don't know, man. You could have had him, maybe traded him. You use him in the future, trade another D. I don't really
yeah.
think having too many good defensemen is an issue, especially when he's going to spend a couple season or more in college, right? Like, but just kind of crazy that it's almost like it's another fumble by Buffalo. Like that's not even in accordance to like their current roster. You know what I mean?
It is kind of crazy. Like they do have left enough left D to put on a whole roster, Buffalo, but still, like that second round pick, if you took Hudson, like Hudson right now, if you were to trade him, you'd be able to get a whole lot
Yeah,
more
but
back
for
than
Byram, like imagine you could just like Byram just becomes so expendable and there'd
yeah.
be a ton of interest, right? Before we move on, like to talking about the NHL, I've actually got like a couple stats here about Team Canada this year. And obviously, we didn't really talk about them because they didn't make to the Final Four, as we both predicted. So, as far as I'm aware, this is the first time in Canadian World Junior history that they're leaving the tournament with a losing record, finishing 2-3. I don't think that's ever been done before. Even last year with the quarterfinals, believe they won 3 games in the round robin, then lost in the quarterfinals. So they technically went 3-2. And the couple other stats, this is the lowest goal total, like lowest leader goal total on Canada in tournament history. Bradley Nadeau had 2 goals. No other player on their team had 2 goals. And it's the lowest point total out of any player in World Junior history in accordance to the team. Easton Cowan, Braden Yeager finished with 3 points, and everyone else was below that. So kind of some mind-boggling stats, dude. Like even to think about that, obviously Canada was dominant for so many years, but they never technically left the tournament with like a losing record, always kind of getting a
Yeah,
medal or whatever. But I believe this is the first time in tournament history that they're leaving the tournament with a negative record.
that's that's fucking crazy, dude. Because like this team like underperformed like historically bad, to be honest. Like they
Yeah, they didn't seem like they wanted it, man. I don't really think, especially even that Czechia game, it felt like the first two periods they just had nothing, and they come back, tie the game, penalties took over, and they didn't really deserve it, dude.
yeah.
They didn't deserve it at all.
I'm honestly happy that they lost in that game, man, because it's like it had to come to an end somehow, and like for it to end like that was great. Because if the thing is, like, if they went to the finals and they like lost in the finals to Team USA, or even if they lost in the semis and then made it to the bronze medal game, right? Like, you know that like this management and the coaching staff would have been at least having like somewhat of a reason to justify bringing the team that they did. But the fact that they lost in the quarterfinals, it's like there's no way you can justify doing this sort of experiment again and not bringing the best available players, right? Like
Yeah, and
next
I didn't
year,
really like the like kind of the upper management's like reaction to the questions and
it
stuff. Like
was it
they
was
kind of
brutal.
like, is it not okay to say that we weren't good? Like, is that a problem? Like, it seemed like that's a huge issue. And I get you don't want to throw guys under the bus, and you can do it in a way that's not necessarily throwing specific players under the
Yeah,
bus. You could just be like, listen, we weren't good enough. We lost to a team that we really shouldn't have in the round robin, but they were more like, oh, well, we went and we took 7 shots and we couldn't score. Like, how often does that happen? It's like, I don't know, man. I just think that you're making excuses, and it's not really what we want to hear here. Um, we're really gonna see what they think about all this though, because like Canada's never lost in two straight quarterfinals, dude, like ever.
yeah,
So I don't know if they're embarrassed, if they want to keep going the way they're going, maybe same coach, different players. I don't know, man. I hope not, but it's like we know how stubborn they are, right? So it's an old boys club. So I really don't
yes,
know
it is.
what's going to be changed. They have the potential to have a very good roster next year, but I don't know. They might not choose all those players that we're thinking of, right?
Yeah, it'll be definitely interesting to see what happens next year. I already can't wait, even though we're still like 350 days away or something like that. But I'm I can't wait to see what happens next year. We got to talk about the NHL, though. We haven't talked about the NHL, and it feels like a few weeks just with over the holidays and then World Juniors. We really just talked about them all last episode. So let's talk about your Montreal Canadiens, Mark, because they might be the NHL's hottest team right now, and they've made a huge jump in the standings. They're 7-3 in their last 10 games. Dude, they only sit 2 points out of the second wild card spot in the East, so it's well within reach for them. Mark, big question for you: is the rebuild over?
Uh, I'd say no in the sense that's kind of a difficult question because we have a pipeline of prospects where if they all kind of I don't want to even say reach their max potential, but at least become like NHLers in slots that I think are more like their floor, then I'd say almost argue like maybe it's over. But it's kind of hard for me to say yeah because it's like we've got so many older guys that are going to have expiring contracts coming up like this year, David Savard's a UFA, Joel Armia's a UFA, Christian Dvorak, Jake Evans. Like that's 4 players, right, man? Like that's a decent amount. And then a couple years later, it's Gallagher, it's Josh Anderson. So it's like we have some pieces right now, right, that are looking very optimistic. But I mean, if you really want to become a true contender, it's not just about having a couple good lines, right? It's about having a full team. So I would argue, no, it's not over. But it's heading in a really good direction, and it's a really fun time to be a fan right now, right? Because you're not really having a lot of expectations in accordance to like. To be honest, dude, I still don't think this team's going to make the playoffs. I really don't. I think that the East is too tight. I don't know if they can consistently keep this up for another 40 games. Like, dude, if you look at the Eastern Conference wildcard race, Tampa's the first wildcard team, 42. Pittsburgh's got 41. Ottawa, Columbus, 40. Montreal, Philly, 39. Detroit, 38. Rangers, 37. Dude, if the Habs go on like a 3-game losing streak, they might be back in seventh.
Yeah,
Like they might be back in third last in the East, right? But saying that, dude, it's been great being a fan recently, and it's not like we're sitting here saying they're 7-3. They got a couple easy wins, dude. After Christmas, they went into Tampa, beat Tampa. They next night they went to Florida, beat Florida. 2 nights later they went to Vegas, beat Vegas. We just beat Colorado a couple
Vegas,
nights ago too. This team, we're
Vegas
beating some
might,
legit teams, dude. Like this is not a joke where we're just playing Detroit and San Jose and Anaheim and all that. We're playing some really good hockey. And to be completely honest with you, our goaltending's been playing very good. Montembeault has been very stable. I think ever since he got announced to Team Canada, I wouldn't say he's been quote unquote great, but I think he's actually proving why he is a decent option. To be completely honest with you, sure, Logan Thompson looks really good. So does Blackwood. I wouldn't have a problem taking those guys, but I don't think you can sit here today and tell me that Montembeault doesn't really deserve to be there because I think he's been playing some really good hockey. And even, dude, this Jakub Dobish kid they called up. Primo's been playing terrible. Montembeault, I saw he's played the second or third most games in the league this year for goalies
yeah.
because Primo's been so unreliable. This Dobish kid went into Florida, first career start, shut him out. Second start, Colorado, beat them 2-1. Dude, both of his starts were on the second half of a back-to-back. And to be honest with you, I'm not necessarily sold that he's going to be a great NHL goalie. I think that a lot of his like technical movement may expose him a bit in the future. I think that's definitely something he needs to work on. But dude, hell of a start to his career so far. And one other guy I kind of want to plug in here who's been playing awesome, dude, Jake Evans. He is shooting at an unsustainable rate right now at 30%. It's fucking crazy. And he's in a contract year. He was making $1.7 million for the last couple of years, playing basically 4C, goes up to 3C. I've always really liked him. He works his tail off, very good defensively, just kind of the guy you need in the bottom six. You know what I mean? At times, he's been given that 2C role, and he's been running with it, dude. And the question is for Montreal is he a guy you want to get rid of at the deadline and get a good package? Or is he a guy that you think could be part of the solution? And to be honest with you, I'm a little bit stuck. I don't really know.
So I have the completely opposite take that you have right now when I look at this Montreal Canadiens team, man. Like I think the rebuild is over. Like when I want to clarify too, because when I say the rebuild's over, I'm not saying that it's over and that you guys are making the playoffs this year and that you guys are Stanley Cup contenders, right? Like I'm saying that though that the rebuild's over. You guys need a top 10 pick narrative. Like you guys don't need a top 10 pick, man. Like those guys you sort of mentioned there to started off like you said Gallagher, like Jake Evans. I agree. Jake Evans, like if I was you guys, I'd want to keep Jake Evans. I think he's a very good middle of the lineup player and can even sort of improve a little bit more, right? But like,
before you continue, the only thing that just really makes me question that is, dude, he's having a career year. Like he's almost like basically past his career point total. It's like, what kind of contract is this guy going to want? Like,
yeah,
and that's what's going to concern me, right? Like if he wants a 5 or 6 year deal at like 4 million, I'd be like, oh, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know if this is sustainable, right? And then we're getting into this team could be competitive in the future, and then that's a bad contract we're sitting on. So that is what is kind of getting to me right now. But I think he's a piece that we need going forward.
Yeah, I agree. Like depending on what the contract looks like, then because contract could completely change the narrative there. But just based off the production you're getting from him and what he's doing in this lineup, like just based off seeing that, I think that is a guy that you guys probably would want to keep around. David Savard, I think that's a guy that you probably would want to keep around. But at the end of the day, like David Savard, he could be replaceable. Like there are guys in the NHL that can do what he does being a shutdown defenseman, right? Like he's not a completely irreplaceable player. Would like if I was you guys, would I like to keep him? Preferably yes, but I think he is a replaceable player. You mentioned Gallagher, like he's replaceable. Josh Anderson, I think he's a guy that you can replace in free agency like fairly easily. Who's the other one that you mentioned? Dvorak, like Dvorak's with you guys has not looked good whatsoever. Like if Dvorak walked, man, I don't give a fuck if I'm you guys. Like I can replace him in free agency. So for me, it's like your guys' core, I think you guys really have your core players right now. And the guys that there's still guys in your prospect line that aren't with the Montreal Canadiens that at some point will come up and be making impacts in the NHL, right? Like Demidov.
Fowler.
Demidov's tearing up the fucking KHL right now. Like when that guy comes over next year, man, like you
I think
guys are
he's
gonna
going to
be
get plugged instantly into the top six first power play. And
100%, dude.
this might be a fucking hot take, but the way he's playing right now, I could see him putting up 50, 60 points in his rookie season.
I I think Demidov comes over and I'd be surprised if he's below that 50, 60 points, man. Like I think Demidov comes over and has like a Kirill Kaprizov type of first year in the NHL.
I more just want to see him. He could score goals, but dude, he's a better passer. Like
Yeah.
I want to see him try to set up Caulfield and fucking line a dude. Like that's what I'm most excited for. Like to me, this could be bias, but I think out of anyone that's in our system right now, including who's on the Canadiens, he has the highest ceiling out of anybody.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. He's a guy that I could see being a point per game player consistently throughout his career. To be quite honest with you, I'm super excited for it. I'm super excited for Jacob Fowler to come in. It's going to be a couple more seasons, man. Like Montembeault Fowler in a couple years, who knows? Like I'm on the take that Montembeault's been getting better every single season. And if you could bring in a guy that could almost like split the net with you, like dude, they might be in a really good spot in the future. Like I'm really optimistic about this team. The only thing that I've been kind of iffy about going back is that Reinbacher pick. I really feel like there were some better options out there, even like Sandy and Pellica.
Yeah.
But I mean, who knows, man? It doesn't mean just because you screwed up on one pick that it's not going to work out, right? It would have been great to have Michkov and fucking Demidov, dude. Like, but I don't know. And one more thing I just want to say about this Habs team. One guy that I think deserves a ton of credit is Alexander Carrier. This guy came in from Nashville in that trade for Justin Barron a couple weeks ago. Super solid defensive defenseman, kind of a smaller guy at 5'11". He's been playing with Gooley and just kind of been giving him that good veteran presence. I think he's only 28, 29. But I also feel like bringing in a guy like that makes either Matheson or Savard expendable, right? Like I was always under the impression with this team is I don't want to trade away all the vets, right? Like you need veteran presence back there.
Yeah.
You need someone, right? But I think that bringing Carrier in, who signed for 2 more years past this year too, it makes either Savard or Matheson expendable.
Like for me, what I really noticed most about your team is that like with the guys with the young guys that are having impact playing up in the NHL, and then with the younger guys that you still have in the prospect line, like the Demidov, like the Joshua Raw, like Owen Beck, Michael Hage, who's in NCAA, Logan Mayu, David Reinbacher. Like for me, when you take those guys, and then also the guys that are on Montreal right now that are locked up or going to be locked up, like the Slavs, the Hudsons, the Cole Caulfields. Like when you mix those guys, dude, I look at your team and I'm like, you guys don't like if you were to have a top five pick this year or even a top 10 pick, like you turn into the Buffalo Sabres where it's just your
You have
whole
too many
fucking team
prospects almost.
your whole team in 2 years is going to be all guys below the age of 30. You're going to like some of these guys aren't going to be given opportunities where they can grow just because you're going to have too many prospects, too many young players that you ought to put in the lineup. Like, I think if I'm you guys, man, like, I think right now it is more valuable for you guys to miss the playoffs by like 5, 7, 10 points. I think that's more valuable than having a top 10 pick because if you guys miss the playoffs by 5 or 7, like, if you guys miss the playoffs by 10 points or less, that means that you guys are playing meaningful games towards the end of the season, which your young players have not had a chance to see so far in their young NHL careers, right? Now, I think that is a whole lot more valuable than a top 10 pick for you guys. The other thing, too, is you
You
guys
go ahead, sorry.
already you guys are also going to be getting Florida's or the Calgary Flames pick, and the Flames pick could turn out to be like the 11th overall pick in the draft, depending on how things go. So it's like I think it does no value whatsoever to you guys finishing like within the lower half of the lottery.
Yeah.
What were you going to say though?
Well, one thing I was gonna say, isn't it kind of crazy that like a month or two ago, everyone's saying St. Louis should have been gone?
I was I was going to say that, and then I just got so so gone with this take,
I
but
just don't think that
yeah,
everyone just reacts too fast, I think. And one
without a
thing that people
doubt.
don't realize, dude, when they started turning this thing around, that was like the first time in like 230 regular season games that the Montreal Canadiens had a full healthy lineup.
Yeah.
Like St. Louis had never coached a fully healthy team in his tenure here so far. I think you just got to give him time. I think he's fucking bought himself so much more time now after what I've been seeing recently. And man, like I don't think it's just like a fluke, man. Like we're looking pretty good right now. The only thing is, it's like, is this going to be sustainable all season? Could we go back to the way we were playing a month and a half ago? We quite possibly could, dude. I really don't know, right? But it is a really fun time to be a Habs fan right now. The one thing I want to say though, I know you're obviously like really high on the Canadians. Do you not feel that kind of outside of Demidov, though, we're kind of lacking a little bit of star power? Or do you think like Suzuki's young enough he could potentially, like, I would say right now, Suzuki's probably like a top 20 center in the league. Like, if you brought it down, maybe 20 to 25.
I I think he's I think he's definitely a top 20 centerman in the league.
But it's
I
like,
think
can he take another step and become maybe a top 10 eventually? I don't really know. And it's like, is that going to be, if that's our best option, is that good enough to win a cup? That's where I'm kind of a little bit concerned about. Like, I don't know. Maybe if Demidov's a star, if Hudson becomes a star, and then maybe Fowler, like maybe I'm thinking differently, right? But I was just more like, I really feel like the one thing that I'm a little bit concerned about moving forward is the 2C role. I think Hage can he seems like he could probably get there, but if he can't, that's a hole to me that needs to be filled because I'm not really seeing it from Doc, to be honest. I think he could be a piece, but I'm not convinced he's going to be like a bona fide top six centerman, you know?
and see, and if I were you guys, I think I'd want to see Demidov get somewhat of a shot at center, to be honest, because I know we were sort of talking about this at work a bit the other day, but like if you could have Demidov as your number 1C, Suzuki as your number 2C, and then when Michael Hage gets to the NHL, if you could have him as your number 3C, like man, night in, night out, playing against the Montreal Canadiens and having those three guys at center and like having to go into Montreal and play those three centermen, like dude, that is a tough team to match up against, right? So it's like if Demidov can play center and get a chance at center and sort of see what he looks like when he gets to the NHL, I think that'd be awesome. But to your point about the stars and superstar thing, like quite frankly, dude, I think Demidov is going to be a superstar in the NHL. Like I think he's going to be a player that will be cracking 100 points. I think he's going to be a Kirill Kaprizov, Matthew Michkov type of player where like you know this guy's going to be a star in the NHL. Um, Nick Suzuki, I know maybe he doesn't put up the point production that you want to see, but I think he is a very good two-way center in the league.
And that's the
Like,
thing lately with these guys. Like, dude, he's been going against these top dogs and like shutting them down, like Barkov, Point, McKinnon, Eichel. Like, that's the thing
I'm
with him, right? He's just at a point per game this year and he's playing some elite defense.
the team I sort of think that you guys honestly compare well to. You guys are just like a bit behind in the process is the New Jersey Devils, man. Like
Really?
what when you look at the New Jersey Devils, dude, like I think Jack, like you can make the argument that Jack Hughes is their only like true superstar. Is there anybody else on that team really that you'd say is like a true
I
superstar?
can't lie, dude. I'm kind of starting to put Brad in that area. Like, I don't know, superstar, but like he's pretty fucking close, dude.
He's pretty close, but here's the thing, dude. I think there's guys in Montreal that have the potential to be what Jasper Brad is. Like
Okay.
okay, like let's go roster for roster, right? Like I'm not saying that right now these players are comparable, but I'm saying I think they could be comparable in the future, right? Like I think Demidov and a Jack Hughes, I think you can sort of compare those two and say that like those two could be
I hope.
comparable players at some point in their future. Okay, second best player is probably Jasper Bratt. Cole Caulfield, like can Cole Caulfield be in that Jasper Bratt territory? I
If
think
he
he could
starts
be,
putting up
man.
like a point per game and he's getting 40 goals, probably.
And I think
They're
Cole
both
Caulfield,
small too, right? Like they're
yeah,
actually like decently comparable, except Brat's more of a playmaker. But
I think Cole Caulfield like could be could be in that category, right? Like
Okay, but
Nico
here's
Hischier.
my thing that I know you're gonna go roster by roster, but I just feel uh do you not feel like that Heischer's probably even better than Suzuki though? Like as a two, I don't know, man. Heischer's a very good a defensive forward. I think they're honestly pretty similar players, to be quite honest with you.
I
So
think they
it's
are
like
too.
that's where it's like Heischer's their 2C. You know what I mean? Like that's why it's like Suzuki's our 1C. So it's like that's where that's what concerns me a bit with that,
Yeah,
right? And it's like center's such an important position, right? So that's why it's like is the rebuild over? I don't really know, like with the Habs, because I just think we're lacking. There's a question mark at a very important position right now.
that
That's my thing.
that's fair. For the Suzuki Hischier thing, the other thing too is like if you take Suzuki and put him on the New Jersey Devils, he's gonna look like a better player because he's surrounded
That
by
is
better
true as
talent,
well.
right?
Yeah.
Like honestly, I think like I do think the rebuild is over for you guys. I think there is maybe a bit of a question mark with your 1C. Honestly, I'm really hoping that Demidov can play center and take fill in that gap of the 1C. And honestly, if he can't, then I think you guys go and you look for a trade for a 1C.
Or just
Or
hope that Hage is developing into that because he is looking pretty good, right? Like I think that's probably his ceiling at this point. But it's like if he doesn't hit his ceiling, then it might be a bit concerning. Same thing with Doc, right? Like I would have argued a couple years ago his ceiling is probably like a 2C, and it's like I don't know if it's the injuries or he's just not going to hit. He's not hitting it. It's just you don't really know, right?
that's fair to say. Let's move on though and talk about a team on the complete other side of where the Montreal Canadiens are right now. It's the New York Rangers. Things just keep on getting worse for them. They are now tied for second last in the Eastern Conference. Igor Shesterkin, he's been placed on IR, so that is a really big loss for them. And then recently, Mika Zibanejad, he's been taken off the first power play, and Chris Kreider has even been healthy scratched here within the last few weeks. So things are looking really rough for them. It looks like some relationships there between players and the front office that just keep on getting worse. Mark, what is next for this team?
I don't really know, man. Like, is it crazy to like I've been kind of thinking about this a decent amount, and it's like it is really we're gonna get into the Canucks eventually, but like they've been rumored with JT Miller going back to the Rangers. Not that I don't think that's a good option, but it's like, are they? Do you think that they've kind of thought at this point like they're done making the playoffs? Because man, like as bad as they've been, like bro, they're 4 points out.
See, I get their 4 points out. The only thing is like when you
I
look
know
at
they have
them,
a
like
bunch of teams to hop, but it's like I don't know, man. Like if you don't think if they figure it out, they could do it. Like I don't know.
see,
I don't think they're going to, but it's like I think internally they might think they can.
the thing with that though is I think like they're 4 points out, but they're also 4 points out, and there's a lot of rocky relationships right now within that organization, right? Like it's not like they're 4 points out and it's like, oh, like there's a lot of good stories with them, like they're feeling good about themselves. Like it's not like they're the Montreal Canadiens where they're feeling good about themselves right now. Like the New York
Yeah.
Rangers are 4 points out. Their entire season's been a fucking nightmare. Media like is rumor like you trade your captain, right? It really starts in the summer when you put Gaudreau on waivers and you completely stronghold him. Then
Yeah.
you trade your captain, you completely stronghold him. You fracture a relationship with Chris Kreider, who is like Mr. New York Ranger, to be honest. Like when you think of like the New York Rangers, like Chris Kreider is one of the first players that comes to mind. They've completely fractured the relationship with him, right? Like I don't think that that's a relationship that you can fix. You trade the number two overall pick in Capo, right? Like it's just been bad story after bad story after bad story after bad story, and like with them being where they are in the playoffs and just the fact that it seems like such a shit show in their locker room and in their organization right now, like I think the season's a write off for them, man. I'm not saying that I think they're gonna finish where they are right now and have a top five, top six pick, but like I don't think this is a team that's like coming back and gonna make a push for the playoffs. So I don't know what's next for them, man. I think they got to make some moves, though, dude.
Who
Like
would be next for you though? Like Zibanejad's got a no move. Problem is a lot of
Zibanejad,
their guys got no moves, right?
I see, I get that, but I think it's so fractured right now, man. Like some of these players would be willing to
So
move on. Like,
Friedman was saying that with a Miller trade, he thinks that if it was an option with Zibanejad going the other way, he thinks that like the trade already would have been done, to be honest. So I don't know if he like that's saying they already went to Zibanejad and asked him, or like I'm not really sure, right? But it's just more hard when you've got these no trade, no move clauses. Like
yeah,
I'd argue, honestly, I'd probably be open to moving like everyone except three guys: Igor, Fox, Panarin. That's basically. I'd be open to moving anyone else.
I'd
Um,
I'd put Laugh in there as well.
yeah, I mean, it's not that he's not replaceable, but you did commit to him.
Yeah,
Honestly, not that I wouldn't trade him, but Will Cooley's actually been kind of a bright spot for them this year.
he has been
I
pretty
don't
good.
really know if I'd really necessarily looking to get rid of him. Um, the thing is with the Rangers too is apparently like Vancouver wants Braden Schneider and they're like not willing to do it like at
Yeah,
all. Which I mean, I could see that he seems like a pretty decent part of their future, right? They obviously claimed Kaliev off waivers today. Wonder if that's going to do anything for them, kind of getting another young body in there. Actually, kind of like a similar trajectory, I feel like, in his career to Kako. Like I mean, like Kaliev wasn't as high as a pick. I think he was like 30th overall, but I mean, both like heavy shooters, kind of like underperformed so far in their career. Wonder if a change of scenery for him will be able to do anything with for the Rangers here, but I don't really know like what to do, man. Like it's like their defense isn't good enough. Like do you think of moving like Lindgren? Like he's really went
dude.
downhill the past couple of years.
If I'm with you, man. Like if I'm them, dude, there's three, four players on this team that are untouchable. It's Shesterkin, Panarin, Fox, maybe Lafreniere, depending on like Lafreniere is very questionable if I'd trade him or not. But if the right price came around, I'd for sure be listening. Like if I was this team, dude, I'd be doing a complete reshuffle. Like I wouldn't go into rebuild and like where you start trading players for picks and young prospects that aren't really NHL ready. But if I'm them, dude, I'm going into a complete retooling. Like I'm calling all these teams that are sort of in similar positions and saying like, look, like you guys are in a similar position. Like, what do you guys want? Right. So it's like the JT Miller one. That one's been heavily rumored. Like if I was New York, dude, I'd really be looking at a JT Miller and seeing what gets the deal done. Because if if you can get JT Miller coming in, he's a hell of a player, right?
Yeah.
He's a dog in the locker room and on the ice. Like he's going to hold guys accountable. Where it really feels like there's a massive lack in that right now in New York. There's no accountability because Zibanejad is like fucking awful, man. And it seems like
Yeah, he's been terrible.
there's it seems like there's no accountability except for the media, right? And it's like you can't have the only people calling out players be the media.
So do you think Laviolette should be fired?
No, I don't
No,
think
I
this
don't
is
think
on
so
him,
either,
man.
dude. I think it goes
It's
farther than him. I think
this
it's a
is
whole
on
effort thing, and I don't really know if it. I can't even sit here and tell you that he's not trying to motivate him.
for
Like he
me,
probably
dude.
is.
For me, dude, this is on upper management. Like this is a
And the
call.
players.
It's a culture issue at the end of the day, dude.
Because
Like
the fact that he got them so good last year and they went far, like shows me that he actually knows how to coach this team. That like when they're
yeah,
actually like wanting to play and win, right? Like I'm not convinced any coach can change anything with this team right now. And I think that's what Drury's probably thinking too, dude, um and why he's not getting rid of him. I can't lie, I kind of like Drury hasn't done a great job with a bunch of shit, but like I kind of respect him not just using Laviolette as a scapegoat. He's actually trying to make trades and figure this shit out. But he's put himself in a bad situation with these no move clauses and shit like that, right? So that's kind of what the problem is in my opinion.
I think it's that, and then the fact that this moves he's had to make and the stuff he's had to do to work around these no move clauses. Like you're really seeing, I think you're really seeing a fucking team that is not bought into their general manager. Like
Yeah.
the fact that he sends that memo out about Kreider, like man, like Kreider's a guy that you think would retire a New York Ranger, right? that
Yeah,
memo gets sent out. Like, man, like that is a relationship that it feels like there's no fixing. Like it really feels like that Chris Kreider is going to be gone by trade deadline. I would be
maybe.
surprised if I would be very surprised, to be honest, if by trade deadline Chris Kreider was still a New York Ranger. Like for me, it's not roster construction. I think this team on paper is a good roster. It's not coaching. I think it's just the fact that these players are so fucking fed up with Jury and his sort of antics and some of the stuff that he's been doing that they're just fucking done and they don't want to play for their general
So
manager
I
now.
also heard that the players have been very upset of how much has been like out to the media.
I I would understand
Like
that
even
too.
before Truba and Zibanejad, all that shit happened, it was like they're looking to move him and whatever, and Kreider, and I think that's what pissed them off a bit. Are you surprised that Igor committed to this?
Not really, to be honest.
You think he
I
just
don't
likes
think
it there?
I don't think he knew he was committing to this. I think
But
it's a mix of both.
he committed kind of in the middle of it.
He committed in the middle, but like in the middle, it looked like it was like, man, they're like on a little like 5, 6, 7 game like bump in the road. They can turn it around, right? Well,
Yeah, that's
now
fair.
now it's been a month that
Dude, he's
he's
not
been
even
committed.
playing that bad either. Like he's
Yeah,
keeping them in a lot of games, but like fuck. If you were them, dude, like considering how good of a tournament he just had, would you want to keep or consider using Gabe Perreault as a trade piece?
I'd keep him.
The
I'd
problem
keep him.
is New York's not really good at developing prospects.
That's it's very true. I'd I'd keep him if the price was right, or if you had to throw him in for a trade to like really get a player that's going to make you guys like make them better now. I'd be willing to throw him in, but I sort of would want to see like what you can get from him. Because the other thing too is like the reason I really don't think that they need to go into a full rebuild mode is because they're the New York Rangers, right? Like this is a team that can reshuffle well and very quickly, right? Like they're not gonna they're not gonna have too much of an issue getting free agents. And when you look at the free agents that are out there this year, like there's some good ones, right, man? So it's like if they can if they can maybe free up some cap space, who knows if they make a run at Mitch Marner? Mikko Rantanen, right? Like, is that a guy that you make a run at in free agency? If you can free up some cap space, also bring in some good players that can have an effect in the lineup now, I think we could be looking at them going into next season and be like, yeah, like, man, they did a really good job over the last 6 months. Like, this is a team that could still win the Metro. But there needs to be a lot of moves for that to happen, right? So who knows how the next couple months are going to play out with them. But if
Right.
I was them, man, going into trade deadline, I'd be making a lot of moves. Let's talk about a guy that we've talked about a little bit so far here over the last couple minutes. It's JT Miller and the Vancouver Canucks. Approaching trade deadline, this team looks like they could really make a major move at any moment. The drama between JT Miller and Elias Pettersson seems to have gotten better compared to where things were like a month or two ago, but it is still a massive question when we talk about this team. Mark, here's the big question for you, dude. Should the Vancouver Canucks move off of one of these players before the deadline? And if so, who should they move off of?
Man, I don't know. I mean, you're saying it got better. I've seen that. I've also seen too that like Hughes and Tocchet are fed up with it and like they don't want to deal with it anymore. And some of
Yep.
like it's kind of going into the room now, and they're not really performing at their best. I don't know, man. It seems like when Pedersen's without Miller, he's better. Like, and when Miller comes back, he's not as good. I don't really know if it's an issue like one of them being that guy. You know what I mean? If this is so weird, man. Like, don't you think this is crazy? Like, there's obviously instances on teams where guys probably don't like each other, get along, but like this seems like a way bigger issue, man. Like, has there
The
been an
last
instance where it's been this public?
the last time this happened was Mike Hoffman and Eric Carlson. And that was what, 2016, 2017?
Yeah,
And that wasn't even so much them. It was more like
yeah,
the wives said fucked up things, and then it made the players, and then each player essentially backed their wife as you would do in that situation, and then it made the players sort of hate each other. But I think Mike Hoffman, Eric Carlson was the last time where something has happened like this publicly, right?
right. And the
And
only other thing that I could think of was D'Angelo Georgiev on the
I don't really
Rangers.
remember that one, to be honest,
Oh, you don't
dude.
remember that, dude?
No,
Oh
not
man,
so
I got to show
much.
you the clip. G can probably give you a better story, but Rangers lost in OT. D'Angelo went down the tunnel, and apparently he's like, "Are you gonna make a fucking save?" Because it was a shit goal,
Oh,
and Georgiev got in his face, and I don't know exactly what happened. It was rumor that Kreider stepped in and like punched D'Angelo. And in the post game press conference, when he was talking, he kind of had red on his knuckles. So it seemed like that story might have been true. But that's the only other time that I can really think of like a public altercation there. But obviously, D'Angelo has history of not being the greatest dude, to be
yeah.
honest with you. So
I think I do kind of remember that a bit. The only difference though is like I think that was a lot quicker though, and it like
D'Angelo was gone like a week
yeah,
after,
like
dude.
it was like a week long thing, and then it was like done. Where like I feel like dude, like with this JT Miller Pedersen thing, like there's been rumor, like let's be honest, there's been rumors that they haven't been like on good terms or really close. There's been rumors of that for maybe a year or so, and now for the last like 2 or 3 months, there's been the rumors that it is like a very bad like a very bad place right now, and it looks like it's at the point where it's like not able to fix that relationship whatsoever, right? So it's like for me, man, if I'm the Vancouver Canucks, I look at it this way. Like we're in a wild card spot right now, right? There's some teams that are breathing down on the back of our necks. So it's like they're not a lock to make the playoffs whatsoever, right? If I'm the Vancouver Canucks, I don't want this year. I don't want a year of Quinn Hughes, like Thatcher Demko. I don't want a year of that to be wasted because two guys couldn't get along in the locker room and it wrecked the whole season and blew things up, right? Like this team almost beat the Edmonton Oilers last year in the playoffs. They were that like
And if
they were
Pedersen was
that
playing to his
close.
potential, they may have.
They may have. It's like, do you really want to follow that season up and miss the playoffs because two guys created such a hostile locker room that it fucked with the rest of the team and you didn't get the production you wanted? Like if I'm their general manager or Rick Tocchet right now, like I'm even Quinn Hughes, man, like I'm all in. Like, look, like one of these guys has to go. I don't know who it is, but one of them has to go, man.
I know I didn't really answer your question technically of like if who would I get rid of? Why? A part of you, do you think that they might just try to like play out the season with it, and then if it really doesn't work, like then they'll do it, or do you think this is a move they do before the deadline?
I think I think I could see them trying to go the rest of the season with this. Do I think they should do that? Fuck no, man. Fuck no.
You think it's just kind of
Like,
like a wasted opportunity, almost like
dude, it's think about how bad it already is right now, dude. It's just gonna get worse and worse media wise and every like media wise, like I don't know exactly how it is in the locker room right now, right?
yeah.
But it's like it doesn't sound the greatest. You know, media wise, it's a fucking nightmare for the team. They're answering questions every fucking night about this shit. It's in the media all the time, right? Like, do you want to go on another 3 months with this shit going on in the media while you're trying to make the playoffs and trying to win a Stanley Cup? I don't want that, man. If I'm these other players, like I think right now it's an area where if you keep on going and having these two players on your team, you're gonna sewer your season, dude. Like,
To get the right value though for either of these guys, like do you not feel like it'd be Pedersen that would have to go, considering that he's got a like he doesn't have no trade protection until next year? Miller's got the full no move clause. I'd argue at the moment Miller is the better player and probably a guy you'd prefer to have in the playoffs. The concerning part is the 5 or whatever year age gap,
yeah,
right?
for me, I think I'd more try to keep Pedersen because of the age gap, because of the fact that you have him locked up for this amount of time. And honestly, I think like with how JT Miller plays, there's going to be a playoff team here that's willing to give up a fair bit to get him, right? Like New York, we sort of mentioned that. Like New York, like Zibanejad, could you get what else could you get in that trade package? Like I think if I was the Vancouver Canucks and I was able to get Brennan Othman, Zibanejad, and maybe like another player that I could fit in the lineup, I'd be all right with that trade. I'd be all right.
Really? I don't know
I'd
if
be.
I would be, because I think Zibanejad is more like a negative asset at this point. And he makes more money than
You
Miller.
think he is? I think
At
Zibanejad
eight
though
and a
with a
half million, I don't know, man.
I think with a fresh start though, it's like he's a player that given a new opportunity, and
My
he's
thing
a
with Zibanejad is I'm just not convinced he can be the guy. And it's like we're already having question marks. Can Pedersen do it? And then it's like I think Miller or Besser's more of like a scoring secondary piece.
yeah.
Like I just don't know, man. Like I think Zibanejad would just have to be like almost ask more than what he's doing in New York right now. Like kind of
I think see I the reason though is I also think P can be that. I think he can be the guy, dude.
okay
Like he hasn't been playing like it right now, but I think he's shown that he can be the guy, dude. I just think he's
for
I
sure
just
he
think
has.
I just think the environment. I think I don't want to say that you have to shelter him, dude, but like I don't think like the way stuff is right now, it's helping him whatsoever.
No, I don't think it's helping either of them or the team. To be honest with you, there's got to be like other options in the Rangers, though. I feel like
For
like
sure
it
there
seems
is.
like they've been having conversations about it, and they obviously can't really, at least as of now, figure out like a good deal to make it work on both sides. But like it's also like Zibanejad's no move clause. Like as much as we talk about it, he can completely veto this trade, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't really know where else. Like, what other team do you think that can give Vancouver kind of like almost what they're looking for? Like, it might not be a guy as good as JT Miller, but it might be like a guy that you can plug into a second line center role who's really good, and you get another piece back, like maybe another top six forward or like a top four defenseman or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, do you have any
So
team in mind that you're kind of thinking of?
I'm sort of looking at teams right now. Nashville Predators. I could. That's an interesting one because for JT Miller,
O'Reilly?
O'Reilly maybe some picks, prospects, and like for JT and JT Miller's perspective, right? It's like you're moving to a no state tax team, so it's like, hey, like I'm going to be making a lot more money there than in Vancouver, where the tax is through the roof, right? So it's like,
He's
what do
American
you?
too.
I'm American too, right? Like the media is not nearly the same as Vancouver, right? So it's like you're also getting rid of the whole media shit show. Predators are a team that we think needs to sort of make a move here if they want to do something. So that's an interesting one for me. Nobody in the Pacific Division. Like if you're Vancouver, you're not trading JT Miller within the Pacific Division, right? And then looking at Eastern Conference teams, any Canadian team, you're sort of writing them off. I don't think he'd go play for another Canadian team, to be
No,
honest.
I don't think so either. What about uh what
The
about
Florida Pan
Carolina?
Carolina's an interesting one. It's just like what do you think Carolina would have to give up for
That's
JT
my
Miller?
problem. They're not trading Nick Ash. They're not trade. I don't think they're trading Aho, and I don't think they're trading Jarvis.
Yeah, they're not. I don't think the only one that they could maybe trade would be Nikash, but it's like based off how he's
Vancouver would have
playing.
to be adding more, in my opinion, to that.
If I was Vancouver, I'd do that though, to be honest.
A one for one. I think I would too.
No, if I was Vancouver, I'd even be adding more to get Nikash back.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I think so too. Just the age difference and stuff too. Well, that trade last year was rumored that like Pedersen was going to go to Carolina, and it was like Nikash and Kotkaniemi going back the other way or something like that, and then he ended up getting extended, Pedersen. So I don't know, man. I can't really think of too many like real options here. Like I don't think New Jersey's really willing to move like Heischer, especially being their captain. I can't really see that happening.
I
Like he's not gonna move. He's not gonna waive to go to Buffalo. Like
It's also hard too with a cap and making money work, right? That's always the hard thing. Pittsburgh, man,
he's from
go
Pittsburgh, right?
go play with Sid, dude. They're only a couple points out of the playoff spot right now.
No, I
Like
think they're in now. I
they
thought
actually
they're
are.
in.
They're the second wild card spot. Sorry, but yeah, like Pittsburgh, would you go there, man?
For him,
If I
I
was
feel
JT
like I
Miller,
would.
the only thing with Pitt though is like, what are they giving up that Vancouver would
That's
like?
the
Like,
problem.
I think Rutger McGroarty has to be in that trade.
Okay, hear me out.
It's like
If he's willing to do it, and obviously you have to add more, Malkin,
you have to add more for if you were you.
like Pitt, Malkin
So
plus for Miller.
yeah, I'd consider it. I'd
Because it's
consider it
like
pretty
even with
strong.
Van, you're getting a guy who could probably play 2C, got
Yeah,
cup experience, knows Rutherford. I
quite
mean, honestly, it
frankly,
probably wouldn't be my first choice, but like, I mean, I'd consider it if the price, if I was getting enough assets back, like Rutger
dude,
and fucking and Malkin or something. Like, I don't know.
I think that's the trade. Rucker and Malkin for JT Miller, and then maybe
But
you have to
Malkin's
throw
also
in.
got to accept that with the no move as
Yeah,
well. There's so many complications with this dude. It's like we can throw out all these hypotheticals, and these no trade, no move clauses are really getting in the way of all of it.
it always comes down to that nowadays, dude. When everybody has no move clauses, modified no fucking like, it always it's so hard to do mock trades nowadays because everybody has a no fucking move clause. It's like this mock trade is such an awesome mock trade, but essentially comes down to will the players waive it, right? It always comes down to that. The
One for
one
one, I
dude
was thinking this Dylan Strom from JT Miller.
I'd I'd consider that.
Ah, man, I just kind of thought about that. Like, I don't know.
Like the one I'm wondering about too is Boston Bruins, maybe. Will you
Yeah,
make it?
what do they got to give up, though?
They need a centerman. Like
They do.
that one may be interesting. And then hear me out. This one probably not gonna fucking happen. But it's like if you're the Florida Panthers, would you be sort of looking at like we make this work?
I definitely look at it. I just don't know what that cap if they can.
Here's the
They'd probably
thing.
have to send Lundell.
Here's the thing. Lundell makes $5 million a year. I believe he makes five right now.
Yeah, yeah.
He makes $5 million a year. Stan Bennett, who's a pending UFA, makes 4.43. JT Miller makes eight. You could do Lundell and Sam Bennett for JT Miller, and you'd still have a million of cap room.
I wonder if Florida even wants to do that, though,
That'd be
considering
it
how
would be an
much of a
interesting
good
one.
factor he was in the playoffs, you know?
Is it Bennett or Lundell?
Bennett.
Yeah. The only thing was he's a UFA at the end of the year, and the way he's playing himself into like a $8 million deal. So it's like you could move Lundell and Bennett and get Miller, who's locked up for 8 million right now,
That's a really interesting
who's a
hypothetical.
dog of a player. And the other thing about Florida too is like we know they have a history of not being afraid to make splashes, right? So it's like that's just the one I was sort of
Okay.
interested in is like does Florida have a workaround to do that? Also, Ekblad, man, Ekblad makes 7.5 right now, right? Like you can move on from Ekblad. There's a
I don't know if they want to
possibility.
do that though after moving Montour because I heard that they want another top four defenseman.
That's fair. The only thing is he's a UFA at the end of the season,
Yeah,
right? So it's like,
I don't really
what's gonna
see him
happen?
going back next year to be honest, but we'll see.
What's gonna happen with him? So like Florida with their UFAs and sort of the way things going with them, like they're a team that could be in on JT Miller, and I wouldn't be surprised if we hear some rumors about that at some point, maybe. Any other teams you sort of think maybe could go out and make a run for Miller or even Pedersen?
What if like Vegas did it, dude? Like, what if they got rid of like William Carlson or fucking Hurdle?
Vegas, I could see Vegas trying to make a run. For me, it's more just I don't think Vancouver would want to,
Yeah, I
just
don't
because
think
it's
so either. Being in the Pacific
interdivision,
Division.
dude. Like,
Yeah, it's definitely
yeah.
complicated in that sense.
Overall, though, there's some teams here that I think could make a run at JT Miller, and I think for the Canucks, it's best man to move off. Doesn't have to be him either. It could be Pedersen. Just move off one of those guys and
To
fix
get a
that
better team
locker.
culture, yeah.
Fix that locker room before you get to where you're the New York Rangers and you're writing the season off because
Right.
the locker room culture is so bad, right? Overall, though, we talked about a fair bit today, man. there's some interesting storylines going on in the NHL. It's going to be busy coming up. We're coming up on trade deadline. We're going to have the Four Nations face off coming up here in the next couple months. Like we're really getting to that point of the season where it's make or break time for a lot of NHL teams, right? Like Mark, you mentioned earlier, it's so close right now within the Eastern Division and even the Western Division for these wild card spots, right? Where it's like this next month of hockey, it's going to be like really important for teams to see if they can get in or get out. And I feel like we're going to start to see some separation here within the next month to 6 weeks. So I'm pumped about this season. But overall, it's going to wrap up this episode. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and we'll be back next week.